Before I start today, I would like to remind listeners that you can join my email list at ownyour5to9.com to receive a transcript of each podcast and additional resources, links, and tools referenced in each episode. Also, today's subject will touch on mental health, and this episode is for informational purposes only. If you are overwhelmed or overcome with your mental health, I encourage you to reach out to a counselor, friend, or licensed professional for additional support. Meanwhile, I hope today's episode will spark an idea and challenge you in your thinking. You are listening to the Work-Life Eubiosis podcast with your host, Charleston Edwards. If this is your first time here, welcome. My goal is simple, to bring harmony and balance to this world, starting with the family. There is so much more to life than the 9 to 5, and this show is designed to bring you inspiration, motivation, and practical solutions to bring balance and joy back to your life. Work-life balance is not a myth, it's a choice. Themes on this show range widely between faith, family rhythms, work, and lifestyle philosophies. You will also hear burning ladder essays submitted by our community of friends and listeners who ditch the rat race, beat burnout to pursue a more balanced and purposeful life. My hope is that this show and the stories shared will provide encouragement, motivation, and will provide some ideas that will be valuable to you on your journey to work-life freedom. So let's dive into today's episode. Critics. We all have them. Some show up in our social feeds. Some are our so-called friends. But the majority of our critics are in our heads. If we don't quiet these critics, they will overwhelm us. Our inner critics can keep us from living a life of freedom. Our confidence to show up in the world in an authentic way is quickly stifled when our inner critics pull out the shame card. Our past, traumas, or someone else's narrative can quickly play silent scripts that are so loud that they paralyze us. I'm a bit excited today to share a couple ways that we can get out of our own heads and put our focus back on the people in front of us. Easier said than done. I know from personal experience how fear of rejection can impact how we show up in this world. But let's do our best to lose our facades and our mask. So how do we escape these mental traps when we have 70,000 thoughts per day? Whose voice are we hearing when we make daily decisions? Are those voices trustworthy? Are we living in our own reality or someone else's? Are my thoughts being kind or critical of my dreams? Are my thoughts holding me in bondage or allowing me to live authentically? All deep questions that must be addressed if we ever wish to live with pure joy, peace, and harmony. No, fixing our thinking is not going to bring world peace, but fixing our thoughts can bring peace to our inner worlds. And it all starts by reorganizing the focus between our ears. My goal for the next few work-life eubiosis is to tackle the many different ways we process our thoughts. A charcuterie board, per se. We all think differently, and there is beauty to this. The computer in between our ears is quite complicated, so it's inevitable that I will not even be able to scratch the surface. But my goal is to help you think a little bit better and deeper about what makes us all tick. What makes you tick? Have you ever met a spontaneous person who is witty, sharp, and has an uncanny ability to laugh at themselves? This type of person is a master at improv. So let's dig a bit deeper into how they process their thoughts. I've recently stumbled across the sensational weatherman Adam Kruger, who works for CW39 Houston. He's an absolute genius at sneaking popular song lyrics into every weather report. His next-level improv makes Whose Line Anyway and Second City look amateur. You can find him on YouTube or Instagram. Weatherman Adam makes meteorology fun. Who cares if he's wrong about the forecast? He's just entertaining. But he's more than that. Weatherman Adam is showing us how to shut up the critics. Not the ones that hate false news or the wrong forecast, but the inner critic. People who can improvise for a living are typically authentic, empathetic, present in the moment, collaborative, and creative. They listen well, because to do their job well, they have to roll with someone else's reality. They are highly adaptable to their environment and the many different changes that fly their way. Clay Drinko, author of Play Your Way Sane, has made a life's work about the brain and improv. He and other researchers have looked at the science behind theatrical improvisation. Research on theatrical improvisation shows that there is more blood flowing to the region of the brain that is creative, which is the medial prefrontal cortex. It's this medial region that lights up by focusing on creative collaboration with someone else in the room. The irony is that when the blood is flowing to the medial region, the part that is ignored so happens to be the dorsolateral region, the location of our inner critic. It's the dorsolateral region that asks all the what-ifs. It's the safety cop, the shame finger. It's our personal critic. When focusing on creative collaboration with someone else, we lose our inner critic. People who practice improvisational thinking frequently tend to easily hurdle over their own awkwardness, quirky behaviors, or limited beliefs. They fully put themselves out there, overcoming fear to grasp flow and freedom. In summary of this segment, it's better to be creative instead of critical. The ability to be an improv thinker can be applied to many disciplines in life. Improvs just aren't theatrics, but you can find this ability for anyone practicing the skill of being present. They are in the moment, focusing on the external reality and choosing to roll with it. Comedians, freestyle rappers, jazz musicians are the most famous improvs, but it doesn't end there. This ability to improv is for athletes, writers, artists, scientists, and yes, even parents can find a state of flow and freedom through improv. Let's focus on how parents can do this well. My two youngest daughters love to play make-believe games, and in their role play, they often ask me to join them. My response is either to show them how to play by my rules or to follow them into their world. That requires 100% improv. If you've ever been in a moment like this without your phone, it's freeing, it's silly, but it's important. This type of freedom and connection strengthens relationships, safety, and trust between a parent and a child. Imagine if we had the same type of energy and posture when dealing with adults. Imagine if we took more time to listen to someone else's reality before projecting our own perspective. Imagine a world where we focused on our neighbors, friends, children, and even strangers to be collaborative instead of critical for something heavy that they may be carrying. Imagine if our response to someone else's reality was to acknowledge that it was certainly real to them. Imagine if we had someone else in mind, not ourselves, when we are working in the way that we were designed. Our purpose would be serving a purpose beyond ourselves. These perspectives may or may not quiet our inner critics, but it certainly should wake us up to be more conscientious of our relational surroundings. Our world is a stage that requires more quick thinking, more improv, and more community. And yes, it may take more improv to improve our world. Let's take a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Own Your 5 to 9, an organization committed to freeing families of the rat race and burnout. Every organization has a leader, mission, and a set of values that drives the organization. But this is commonly missed in the most important organization in the world, the family. An organization has one mission for how it will impact the world. Why not the family? An organization goes into strategic planning to align its values, mission, and projects. Why not the family? Whose Home, a strategic planning guide for families, is a workbook and a tool needed in all households. Whose Home takes a strategic planning approach with 10 guided exercises to define your core family values, family mission, and tools to operationalize how your family does life together. If your family is facing big decisions, Whose Home is for you. If you're considering a career pivot, Whose Home is for you. If you desire more intentionality and harmony in your home, Whose Home is for you. Create a healthy culture, not a hustle culture, at home. Visit ownyour5to9.com to claim your copy today. There is a time and a place to unpack our inner critics. But this biohack of improv thinking is quite central to a posture that we should live our lives by. Being present, empathetic, and supportive of our fellow man. So let's apply this concept. Here are 4 improv applications to live by. Number 1, be childlike. When our child asks to play, say yes. And then not only follow, but engage by finding your inner child to play along. To take it further, encourage improv for your kids. There's a podcast called Don't Break the Rules by the Kids Podcast Network that is all about fun improv stories for kids. Plug it in on your next car ride and be ready to laugh. Number 2, be in community. Go for a walk down your street and take notice of a neighbor or even a stranger. Say hello and strike up a conversation. Based on the response, actively listen and engage thoughtfully. Our phones have made this normal act of meeting humans face to face and eye to eye more awkward than it needs to be. Oh, the irony. Number 3, be creative. Creativity is sparked in many ways. But from the improv thinking mentality, there is no such thing as a dumb idea. Creativity can be contagious when we start role-playing and going with the flow with other people in the room or on Zoom. Schedule creative brainstorms with other people late in the day instead of early in the day. The later the better, because most people have fewer security guards around their thoughts as the happy hour nears. And number 4, be caring. Care for who you are at the core. It's the best version of self-care. Easier said than done, but let's express ourselves the way that organically feels right. All of us were designed uniquely for a purpose. Your way of expression is like a fingerprint. No one else can be you. This means we think differently, so it's hard to compare ourselves to someone else that thinks a different way. Let's practice putting ourselves in more situations that makes us a bit more vulnerable and free to be ourselves. Let's embrace being able to laugh at ourselves. Not everyone is a quick thinker. I'm surely not, and I'm going to dive into this next week on deep thinking. But in this meantime, we can all find some common principles in the improv space to be more focused on being creative with others, rather than feeling embarrassed about our unique expressions. Examine your thoughts, challenge your thoughts, and then get them out your head so you can be you. The world needs you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to the Work Life Eubiosis podcast, part of the Work Life resources created by Own Your 5 to 9. I hope that you have found encouragement and a few ideas to strengthen your journey to purpose, freedom, and balance. Have you overcome burnout and found a new way of life? Millions around the globe are still at the risk of burnout and losing it all, and your story may be the one that sparks not only a dream, but action. Visit ownyour5to9.com for more information and to submit your story. While you're there, join the Work Life Eubiosis newsletter and receive additional resources weekly right to your inbox. If you enjoy this podcast, take time to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Share it with a friend or a loved one. Remember, the most important organization in the world is the family. Let's do our part to strengthen it. Thank you for listening.